Hi, friends. Welcome to the God and My Girlfriends podcast. We are so glad you're here. Welcome, Debbie Cunningham. We are so happy to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to see you again.
You and Stacey have met before too, right?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
we
we
have.
had lunch in Jacksonville several years ago.
2019 when I was on a book tour.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was trying to think of what brought you to Florida. It was your book tour.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get to your book in a minute too. You have had such, you've had so many jobs, Debbie. You're kind of like me. I remember you and I met initially, if I remember correctly, we met at a movie screening for 20 Feet from Stardom. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Which you are an incredible singer, incredible jazz singer, songwriter. And we met at that movie, which is about background singing. Now, I've done a lot of background singing. Have you actually done any background singing?
I actually have only done once or twice.
Really? So your main
Mostly.
thing has been jazz, being a jazz singer.
Yeah, before that, I actually sang on quite a few accompaniment tapes or karaoke tracks when they first started coming out.
I
I
did
actually
that.
was I was hired to sing a lot of Sandy Patty tracks because I had a lot of high notes.
Oh, so you were the Sandy Patty call.
I was the Sandy Patty call.
I was the Martina Trisha Faith call.
Yeah. Well, back then I didn't have any low notes. Now I do, but back then I didn't.
I know my voice has gotten a little lower too. That's awesome. Yeah. And then you were singing in doing jazz gigs around Nashville, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was.
How did you get into being a jazz singer? I mean, Nashville is usually like country, so what led you
Right.
there?
Well, and the funny thing is, I have a classical music degree. I was a
Oh, wow.
coloratura soprano, which is why I got all those Sandy Patty calls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I love easy listening jazz. That was a style of music that I really loved. And so when I was 39 and I was thinking about, I was a stay-at-home mom. And when I was thinking about, what I had accomplished for the first 40 years of my life, and I was looking at what did I want to do for the rest of my life, the one thing I hadn't given myself permission to do was pursue jazz music. And I decided and felt led to go into that. And so I went back to school to study jazz at the Nashville Jazz Workshop. So there is jazz in Nashville. It's just kind of like underground a little bit.
Right.
And it kind of blossomed from there. And then I started singing around town jazz.
At age 39.
Yes, actually at 41, I released my very first jazz album.
Really? Now, see, someone out there that's listening right now that's thinking that they're getting close to 40 and they're thinking like, what do I do now? Um, you got a lot of options, girlfriend. You really do, right? Because
Yes.
your kids had probably gotten older where you had a little more free time at that point, correct?
Yeah, my kids were 10 and 7 at the time. And so
Okay.
they were still in elementary school. But I felt like, and at first I thought the same thing, like I'm too old to even consider this, but it was a dream in my heart. And you have to cultivate it. You have to be intentional about cultivating those things. And I realized it actually wasn't too late if I really wanted to put some effort into it. And so I always encourage women because, yes, I'm a jazz recording artist, an author, and a speaker, but none of those things came about until after the age of 40 for me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty that's encouraging. I think it really is that's an encouraging word right there for someone out there is like, okay, it's not too late for me.
That's
'Cause
right.
I
Yeah.
remember actually sitting playing piano and singing in a cover band for a happy hour club here in Nashville. And I was like 35 and my mind was wandering and I'm thinking, I'm almost 40. Like I got to figure out what I'm going to do. Like my music career is almost over. No one's going to hire a 40-year-old.
And here you are still on a tour bus and you're way past 40, friend.
Well, yeah, the
I
tour
can only
bus.
say that because I'm right with you.
Yeah, that's right. And we've talked about this. I know Stacey and I've talked about it on previous podcasts too, about how we really have to change this conversation with women about, as we get older, that we become less useful.
Yes.
Because we're that is just not the case. We have so much wisdom, and I have loved every single decade that I've lived, and I'm loving my 60s. I mean, they're different, but so back to, you were a jazz singer, and then next thing I knew, because we weren't staying in touch too much, but off and on, I found out you had written this amazing book. Here's my
Yeah.
copy of Dancing in the Kitchen. And I'm like, she's a writer too? How did you jump from singing into writing a book?
Well, I sang about romantic jazz. I was always singing about love and romance. And then my last album, A Million Kisses, is what it was called, had all songs that I had written and produced. And it was about the journey of lasting love. And my fans started emailing me and saying, hey, we really resonate with this album. You should write a book about the subject. And I thought they were crazy. But I kept hearing more and more about it from different spheres of influence in my life. Different people were calling me and saying, hey, you should really write a book about this. And so I felt like God was trying to get my attention. And so I took all the things that I learned, even in my own marriage, or the stories behind the songs on the album, all come from different stories of my life or other people's lives. I interviewed couples who had gone through challenging things but stayed together. And basically that's what the book is about. It's strategies and stories of staying in love.
It's beautiful. I was just sitting here thinking of something you guys said earlier when you were talking about how your voice has changed over time.
Mm-hmm.
And also this idea that that we have less to give as we age. But, even though we change, things, become different. The range that you've experienced in your lifetime has expanded. And, that's what I think we have to pull from, is the idea of what we've learned in our lives and how we can reach back and help other people see things that they haven't yet seen, help them to, catch a vision for what the possibilities are as we get older and have all this experience and wisdom, like you said, Marcia.
Yeah.
It just really struck me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we hit midlife and we are kind of sold a bill of goods in our culture and society that it's a downward spiral when we hit midlife. But we have so much more wisdom and experience as we age. And there's also more freedom as we get older and our kids get older, or if we don't have children, maybe we have less demands with our job. So we have a lot more time to pour into other people and more opportunities. I just see it as an exhilarating season of life.
So speaking of midlife and moving upward, I love when I heard the title of your podcast, Midlife Crescendo. That was perfect. That's brilliant. I mean, way to combine a musical, what is that word?
Motif or
yeah, motif.
theme.
Yeah, theme along with midlife. But that is a beautiful way to look at midlife. So tell me how you came up with the idea to do this podcast.
Well, I would say the one thread through all of my different jobs that you said I had in my lifetime has been the purpose of encouragement. I love to encourage people. I encourage them through my music. I encourage them through my book. And now I encourage women through my podcast. And to me, I want midlife. We just said a minute ago how sometimes midlife has a negative connotation and that we don't have any more to give. I see it as the opposite. I see it as an exciting crescendo of our life. You know, the word crescendo, you know this, but for those who don't know the musical term crescendo, it's a point in the music that's the loudest or most exciting. And the songwriter is trying to get excitement and energy and loudness, volume in that point in the music. And it's a pinnacle. And I see midlife that way, that it's a pinnacle of our lives, that we have so much more opportunity to do new things. And if we look at it that way and we kind of give ourselves permission, and I think that's part of it, giving ourselves permission to go for it, whatever that is, to go after our dreams, aspirations, start the side hustle, whatever it is, it's just a really exciting time. And from the faith perspective, God created us as women to live from age 1 to maybe 100. Are we just going to stop living because we turned 40 or because we have go through menopause? We have, when those things die away and our ovaries stop working, there are a whole lot of other things that come into focus. And I think that it's just a grand time. And that's really where I got the name from, is just looking at midlife as a pinnacle in our a pinnacle season in our life.
And when you talk, Debbie, about providing encouragement, what kind of themes are you seeing in the podcast as you're meeting with women and encouraging them? What's coming out?
Well, what's interesting is before I started the podcast, I actually sent out a survey to the midlife women that I knew to see what they wanted to talk about.
Great
And
idea.
Well, it's amazing to see the kinds of topics that came up, and most women were saying all of the same things. But the things that they wanted to talk about besides menopausal changes and health were things like their frustration with feeling isolated and alone. A lot of isolation and loneliness in midlife.
Yes.
The difficulty in cultivating friendships midlife because you don't have the same proximity that you used to have to people if your kids are grown and gone, or if you're not working in an environment. A lot of us are entrepreneurs where we work in an isolated environment, right? We don't have a lot of peers working with us. And then things like just dealing with aging parents and finances and retirement and reinventing themselves, or even topics like forgiveness and trying to find their value in this season of life in this world, even though a lot of them, even Christian women, struggle with finding their value right now. Because yes, my identity is in Christ, but where do I find my value if I'm not being the mom, or if I'm not working this particular job? You know what I'm saying? It's just, they're really struggling with feeling a sense of value in this midlife season. So that, to answer your question, those are some of the topics that came up when I asked the women.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you wrote them and asked and kind of did an informal survey like that. Because you're right. I think there are a lot of similarities now. And when you talk about feeling maybe isolated, I imagine this time of history and what we've come out of in terms of the pandemic hasn't helped in that regard. So that might even be exasperated a little bit.
Yeah.
Exaggerated, maybe. Mm-hmm.
You know, Stacey and I were just talking. Well, you know, I just spent 5.5 hours in the salon because I decided at this point in my life, you mentioned that I'm still on a tour bus. I'm actually not anymore. I decided this year to get off the tour bus. I'm hoping I can do a few sub dates, but I'm at a real crossroads in my life with my career and just everything. And I just decided, you know, it's almost like I broke up with my boyfriend, you know how, and you need a new haircut, or you need some.
Yeah.
So I just decided to start letting my grays grow. I'm like, decided to just embrace the gray. And so I went today to the hairstylist. I've been letting it grow for like 5.5 months of growth. I can't believe I did that. But I went to the hairstylist to get some highlights put in to kind of help, you know, soothe that thing. And that's what I was doing today. But I think that we do, as we grow older, what matters to us really starts changing. Like you said, when we're younger, we're really concerned with our looks because we're trying to find a spouse, or we're trying to find a partner, and we want to look good, we want to attract men. And then our kids become our focus, it seems like, and I'm speaking about married women, but if it's not our kids, it's our career, right? I mean, I remember a season where I woke up every day thinking, what can I do today to further my career? How can I be successful in my career of choice? And several years ago, we did a book study at my house, on a book called Embracing Your Second Calling. Are you familiar with that book, Debbie, at all?
Mm-mm.
I'm not
By
actually.
Dale Hansen Burke. And it's really great because it basically talks about your midlife and how things really, there's a shift. At some point for most people, there's a shift to where you stop wanting to be successful in life and you want to be significant in life. And there's like a real difference in that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I have felt that. I'm like, how can I be significant? How can I do something to make a difference in this world for others? Not so much about being successful for me. Do you find that theme with some of the ladies you're talking to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's that value conversation that comes up. They're trying to refine or redefine their purpose
Yeah.
midlife, and we're all looking for that because we want to make a lasting impression or a lasting contribution, I should say, on the world around us, especially as we get to this midlife stage.
Mm-hmm.
We want to do something. We don't care. We care less about making a certain amount of money or, like you said, being successful in a certain manner. We care more about the contributions we're making in the world and in the people around us. And I think that's been a big part of the conversation that I've had with a lot of women. And they're really looking for that and I think sometimes it takes permission to do that because sometimes we feel like we have to do more and be more to provide more or to be something that we think people expect of us at this age. But I think we hit midlife and go, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do more, be more. I want to be. I want to take care of me a little bit and figure out what I want and how I want to live the rest of my life and how I want to contribute to the world around me. So I think it's a big conversation. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I run into women too that are same kind of journey, but flipped, where they have reached a point where they've been a caretaker, they've, you know, had the first part of their life just really caring for their homes and their families. And then now they're like, I feel like I haven't done what I really wanted to do professionally. So it's the same kind of, how can I be significant with my strengths and gifts in this way? And so everyone, it's the same conversation, the same wrestling match, but different outcomes based on where we are with our life and with our career.
Yeah.
Really cool conversations, I bet you're having.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so what's exciting though is even if they're starting a second career, they're doing it because they want to make that contribution. Mm-hmm. That's what brings them joy.
Yep.
And in the second half of life, we need to be attention. I think what's great is that we have a little bit more time to be attentive to our own personal needs. And self-care is hugely important during menopause and the physical changes, the physiological changes we're going through in midlife. I just had Dr. Anna Quebeca on my podcast. She's an OBGYN and she talked about menopausal health. And she talked about the actual necessity of slowing down and giving ourselves more self-care because it helps us physiologically as we progress through menopause.
Wow. So tell us, I know you've done several episodes so far. Can you point to maybe a favorite episode that you've had and what the conversation was like in that one?
Oh, gosh.
That's like asking to pick your favorite child.
I know it is kind of, I enjoy all of my guests and the different conversations we're having. That's really, really hard.
Well, just tell us about one of them.
Okay, so one of my favorite ones, actually, there were two. One was about friendship, and I talked about cultivating friendships and had a few of my friends on, and we did a roundtable discussion for most of the podcast about building intentional friendship midlife.
Mm.
And I heard back from a lot of people that is one of their favorite episodes. I wasn't sure if it would be because it was just a roundtable, because we just discussed friendship between the three of us. And then the other episode I did a few weeks ago was on ambiguous grief. And to me, that a lot of us, even especially after COVID, have a lot of ambiguous grief. And ambiguous grief is not associated with a death, but it's associated it's not associated with a funeral, a death and a funeral. Mm-hmm. It's associated with loss outside of that. And a lot of women have loss of hopes and dreams. Maybe they didn't get married. Maybe they didn't get to have children, or maybe they never got to pursue their career. Like Stacey was talking about, some of the women she was talking about. And for some of them, those are big losses we need to grieve and process.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one of my favorite episodes. And I interviewed my friend who's a counselor, Melanie Eddy. She's a women's counselor in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But we have a lot of really great conversations around helping women process that ambiguous grief.
Well, tell us a little bit about how, because that conversation, I'm sure, stirs some thoughts around faith. So tell us about the intersection of faith with your podcast.
Well, for me, faith is a part of who I am. And so I feel like I want to encourage women to live their best life with God and also with themselves in the world. It's like your book, Marcia, your relationship with God, my girlfriends, and myself. Faith really comes into play in that I want to encourage women in their value in God, and just as they're seeking this season of midlife, that God still sees them, that they're not forgotten. And I think there are so many hard things and challenges in midlife, physically, emotionally, that sometimes we can feel like, does God even see me?
Mm.
And I want to encourage them in that as well. So it kind of intersects just throughout the different conversations we have, whether it's finances or menopause or sex midlife. We talk about it all on Midlife Conversations.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, yeah, because you saying, does God even see me? I think sometimes one of the things I hear, you talked about women in midlife feeling lonely, they feel invisible, because culture doesn't highlight midlife women. They highlight youthful women, and then it causes us to want to hold on desperately to our youth rather than embrace this season. So what would you say to encourage someone to really let go of that and embrace what comes with midlife, the good and the bad and all of it?
Well, I would say that, first of all, when you hit midlife, you've lived so much of life. You have so much more to offer at 50 than you did at 20. You have a lot of life experience, no matter who you are. You have a lot of life experience, and it's an opportunity for you to share that with others. No matter, what career you've had, you've got an opportunity to pour into other people. But also, you have so much more you can do. Do you know that Laura Ingalls Wilder was 65 when she published Little House on the Prairie?
Really?
65. Okay. And then I don't know if you're familiar with Grandma Moses. Do you know who she is? She was an artist.
Yeah.
Do you know that she didn't start painting until she was in her 70s?
What?
In her 70s, she painted until she died when she was 101. Between 70 and 101, she also wrote her own autobiography. And by the time she died at 101, her paintings were being sold for over $10,000. And now that some of them are worth, $1 million.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
I mean, if you stop that, I like to point her out because, I'm 58. I can't even think about starting something new at 70. Can you? I mean, and she had an amazing career, and she started it because she never got the opportunity when she was younger, because there wasn't a lot of money in her family. And then she got married and she was taking care of children, and it was, a long time ago. And so that it's amazing to me that she did some of the things she did. And even Laura Ingalls Wilder, we grew up with Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
And she was 65 when she published that first book.
Wow.
So Marcia, look what you have some time here. You can start a new career.
Oh, Lordy. I don't know if I have the energy to start a new career, but
I think we should always be growing and investing in ourselves as well as the world around us. And there's always room and there's always time to cultivate a new dream. I really, really believe that.
I believe that too. I do. I think we shouldn't let age limit us in that place. I remember a friend of mine retired and she was really excited about retiring. And then after about 6 months, she found herself kind of bored and she was like, I don't know what to do with myself. And I said, well, what's something you've always wanted to do? And she said, well, I've always wanted to paint. And I said, then go take a painting class. She was like, but I'm too old to get good at it. And I said, no, you're not. And even if you don't get good on it, it's like, just do it. Just experience some things that you've always wanted to experience. Yeah. I mean, I think somehow we limit ourselves when we tell ourselves that, oh, I'm too old for this or whatever, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't know how much longer we have, right? We don't know when we're going to die. And not to be morbid about that, but if you stop and think about it, like one of my mom's closest friends is 104.
Wow.
Right now. So if I think about that, I might live to 100, I got time to do some new things. And I don't want to just stop living because I'm getting older. I want to enjoy my life and do the next thing that brings me joy.
I want to go back to what Stacey said a minute ago about the intersection of faith, though. Do you find that women are more interested in spiritual things as they get older? Do you find that, as we're getting older and we're maybe, looking at, okay, what's next after death? I hate to be morbid, but I mean, do you find, I mean, I kind of feel that way as I've gotten older, like I've gotten a little more interested in nurturing my spiritual life. Are you seeing any of that?
Yes, I am. A lot of women are saying that, they want to know how to grow more intentionally in their relationship with God. And I think too, they hit midlife and they have more time to think about it. Because, when we're younger, we are burning the candle at both ends. We're going all the time. And whether we take care of kids or just have careers, that career ladder can really burn you out if you're just focused on career. And I think that we don't take the time to maybe we don't take the time to invest that time in our faith or in our relationship with God, or even our relationship with our friends, because friendship wanes in those years too. When you're so busy, it's hard to make time for friends, especially if you're raising a family or if you've got a very demanding career. I mean, even when you were on the tour bus, you were traveling a lot. Gone a lot. And then when you come home, you want to see your husband and your kids. You only have this much time and it only goes so far. And I think as we have more time midlife, that we can spend more time really delving into that relationship with God and the relationship with others.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I found that to be true. Go ahead, Stacey.
What's on the horizon for you, Debbie? You've done so many interesting things. What are you dreaming about these days?
Yeah. What are your dreams?
What are my dreams? Yeah. Well, keeping this podcast going for number one. Show management it's a job all in and of itself, as you both know.
We know, yeah.
Oh yeah. But no, I have one of the things we talked about is that all of those careers I've had never came about until after the age of 40.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I've done is I have a webinar. I have a course. It's called 4 Keys to Launch Your Midlife Dream, but where I encourage other women to pursue their dreams. And I show them the process I used at age 40 to make those things happen. But I do have a brand new webinar coming up in March 19th. It's a free webinar for anyone who's interested that will walk you through those 4 keys and help you get started on that. So that's my next thing coming up.
That's awesome. And how can people find out more about that and sign up for that?
If you go to my website, debbiecunningham.net/4 and the word keys. So 4 keys. You can get on the email list to sign up for that free webinar.
That's awesome. And are you on socials? Do you do social medias?
Oh, yeah. Instagram at Debbie Cunningham Official. And then also for my podcast, it's Instagram at Midlife Crescendo.
Cool. Well, we'll link up all of those places so people can connect with you. And, also I just wanted the book, Dancing in the Kitchen. This is a great book. You sent this to me and I thought, well, I should read it because my friend wrote it. I couldn't put it down. It's really well written. And you were such an encouragement to me too, when I started writing my book, and you were like, now it's going to take like 2 or 3 years. And I'm like, oh no, I can get this knocked out in 6 months. Oh boy, were you right. Your words rang in my head so many times. I was like, well, she said, but no, you are a genuine, I can speak as your friend. You live that out. You are an encourager of women, an encourager of everyone that you meet. And I love that about you. And I think your podcast is going to really help a lot of women. And I've listened to a couple episodes. I've really liked it. And I know it's going to grow. I know it's going to be a great fit for you. And it's going to help a lot of women out there. So thanks for coming on and talking about it today.
Well, thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed being with both of you today.
Yep. We need to go grab coffee in person soon. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Thanks, Debbie.